Well, welcome to the Sovereign CEO podcast and the Alpha Male 2.0 podcast. I'm actually going to put this on both podcasts. And if you are watching the video version of this, or actually the audio version, you probably see the title, you will notice that I have a special guest. This person looks kind of familiar. Who's that? How you doing? This is the one and only Ross Jeffries. I was thinking about, introducing you, but I'm like, you literally don't need one. Why don't you introduce yourself, and then I'm gonna follow up with how I know you and how I know your techniques work and what you and I have been. Anyway, you start, and then I'll tail onto that. I don't want to butcher your introduction.
That's fine. Addressing what you just said, that I need no introduction. I was at a marketing conference. I forget what it was, for copywriters. I've been writing long form copy for 30 years, and created sales for other people, millions of dollars and millions for myself. And
I know.
In any case, I came up to someone at a conference and introduced myself. He said, "Wait, Ross Jeffries? I thought you were an urban myth." For real.
I've never gotten that.
Yeah. So yeah, you could think of me as a myth, a legend, a projection of the unconscious hopes and fears of lonely men. I, of course, am an individual, someone who's devoted to the power of language, to influence, to persuade, to seduce, to create change. Most people don't know that in addition to being a podcaster, an author, speaker, sales trainer, master seducer, et cetera, I'm also a healer. A lot of the work I do involves helping people to shift their consciousness and to ferret out limiting beliefs, which everyone claims they can do, but I've worked with some of the most damaged people in the world and assisted them in doing it. I don't do that anymore. And now I work with highly successful people who are never satisfied with where they're at. They're great, but they want to go beyond great into something that fucking blows their mind. I am insatiably curious and creative. And I've been told recently by one of my naturopaths that I am, quote, neurodivergent. Now,
fun.
I don't know whether they're saying I'm on the spectrum. I certainly think my brain is wired differently, Caleb. I think my brain is wired to look for exceptions to rules.
I agree with you.
My brain is wired to be contrarian, and my brain is wired for language. Like, just as some people are wired for mathematics, they just are. If I studied really hard in high school, I could get a B+, but in algebra or trigonometry, but I would have to study for hours, where other kids would just whiz through it. So and I'm impact driven and service minded. I have to have an impact. I need to know that I'm making a difference in the lives of other people. I live for that.
So in a second, I'm going to tell you, I don't think I've told you this, on how when I first realized your stuff actually worked in the real world. But for you guys watching or listening, we're going to start off here talking about dating relationships from a male standpoint. And then we're going to morph this into business, because that's the space that both Ross and I are in now. And I was just thinking about this. You and I somewhat on our public personas have made that same shift. I started out in dating and relationships and moved more into business. I was already a consultant and business consultant, things like that, but I wasn't publicly that. And so you did something similar, although very different than me. But that, I just wanted to warn you guys, you're going to get both in this podcast. This is when I knew for sure that your techniques worked. And this is back when I was in the pickup artist world. I was kind of the second generation. So this was like 2008, 2009, somewhere in there. And I had watched a few of your videos, and one of your techniques, well, I'll describe it in a second. I saw you demonstrate it. And I said, oh, that's gotta be bullshit. There's no way that works. But what I always try to do is be open-minded enough to try something a few times before I say it doesn't work. Right. So what I did was going lots of first dates back then. So what I did is I tried this out on 3 different women on first dates. And it was the technique where, I'm probably going to butcher it, okay? But it was the technique where you say to a woman, remember a time when you were really horny. Okay, don't remember the event, remember the feeling. Okay, do you have the feeling? Yes. Okay, where is it in your body?
Yes.
Oh, it's in my chest.
Signal recognition. We call this
Yes.
SRT, signal recognition technology.
Yeah, you can expand on this. This is amazing. Guys, this shit worked. So I'll tell you what happened. So then you say, what color is the feeling? It's purple. Okay. So you can picture my hand. You put it right next to her, and I'm pulling the horny purple energy out in my hand. You see it in my hand? Yes. And you notice how I pull it away, you feel less horny. You know how I push.
But when it gets stronger, and the stronger it gets, the more you want it. And the more you want it, the stronger it gets until
that's better.
Right there. Yeah.
Yes. And so I did that on 3 different women, and all 3, 2 of them I had sex with, but all 3, you could see this physiological change. One of them actually said, you know, that embarrassed smile that women get when they're like embarrassed, they start smiling. She did that. She said, how are you doing that? And I went, okay. And I had sex with 2 of them out of the 3. And I'm like, okay, Ross's stuff works. I now know this for a fact. That was the moment that I was sold. And I just tried this on a whim, and I'm sure I did it wrong. It still worked. Well, I also remember, well, go ahead. I got all kinds of things, Tim. Go ahead.
Well, no, the power of what I teach is you don't have to get it right completely. If you do it half right, it's still so powerful. It works. Now, to be sure, you can't just walk up to a woman and say, where do you feel horny? You have to create rapport, and you have to do some things to warm her up and get her laughing a little bit. I'm sure it was not the first thing you said to her. And also, it's important to surround it with a framework where she has a motive to want to learn it. So if I were doing that anymore nowadays, I would say, well, you look like someone who loves to learn about herself. What's she going to say? No. And you say, I was having a conversation with a mentor of mine about how people can learn to recognize what they're feeling inside so they can get some measure of control. And it's really, really interesting thing. It's kind of wacky. You're probably not adventurous enough to want to explore it. And they go, yes, I am. So I wouldn't just, in the beginning, I would just walk up and do that. And results were not so strong. But, and also secondarily, some women I would say are more receptive to that kind of technique, which I call a demonstration. Other women, you want to come in covertly through the back door. No, a pun intended. It all depends. But
what is that based on, really quick? Is that based on her personality? Is that based on her age? Is that based on
it's a felt sense that you get. It's just a felt sense that you get. And I can't give you an algorithm for that. You know, my stuff is powerful and it's fascinating, and you have to go out there and do some significant number of trials to see that, yeah, it works. And the most amazing thing is, when I first started doing this, people said it's a fraud, it doesn't work. Then people said, well, it's the placebo effect. People believe it will work and therefore it does. And I would say, no. My students don't believe it will work. They're shocked.
I didn't believe it.
And that's how you know you have something that really does work, because the person doesn't believe in it. If they believed in it and it got results, the expectation factor.
Oh, I see what your point is. If they believed it, then it would be placebo. I see what you're saying. Therefore, the fact that I didn't believe it wasn't placebo.
They would gone in with that expectation, but in my case, they go in the expectation that it won't work, and it still does. So that's a pretty clear indicator that this is something unique.
Well, I imagine that you could walk up to someone and do this. You did a thing, again, this is a long time ago. You've done a billion videos and people have interviewed you, and, you know, Tom Cruise played you in a movie. And I mean, so I'm sure you, oh, there it is. There it is right there. Yeah. For those you didn't know, Tom Cruise played Ross, his real name is Paul, in a movie, Magnolia. Just you didn't know yet. You didn't know.
I love the movie. It's a great movie.
It's a fantastic movie. Yeah. Where was I? Oh, you did the thing where on one of the many, a man was interviewing you. There was a cameraman and a woman, and the man was interviewing you and the woman was standing there as like a demonstration, or maybe his friend or something. And all you did was, and again, because I had used your techniques, I knew this was real because I knew your stuff by then. All you did was take your finger, put it on her arm like this, and you dragged it up a little bit and made her horny, like up an inch. And that's all you did. Well, and she's like, oh my God, how are you doing this? Yeah.
Nah, there was more to it than what you saw.
Okay, I figured.
Like David Copperfield or what's his name? David Blaine or whoever doing a trick. It was for real. It was absolutely for real.
But there was stuff before that?
No. It was absolutely for real, happening as it did. but you only recognize what I was doing here. I was also doing things linguistically with her to get her turned on first. And then when I did the finger, it's called a sliding anchor. The closer you get it to a nerve bundle, a nerve cluster, the stronger the feeling will get. So it was totally real, non-rehearsed. But what I'm saying is you only recognize the part because your eye is untrained. That was obvious. You didn't see the neurolinguistic stuff and how I primed it with my language.
And in that kind of scenario, how do you remember how long that took before you actually touched her arm? Do you remember, or how long does that take?
Within
Minutes?
2 minutes.
Yeah, minutes. So that's my point to you. I bet you could walk up to someone cold as long as you were non-threatening and do something, I would imagine, right? Or no?
And no one has 100% hit rate. And also remember,
right.
And now also remember at my age, I have to avoid the creep factor. I would be a lot more subtle with someone who's in their late 20s as opposed to someone who's in their mid 30s or early 40s. I can't. I would never walk up to a 19-year-old and say, "Are you? Do you travel?" Because I thought I saw you in Babylonia. They go, "Grandpa, fuck off." I don't know.
I've had to teach men. Well, most men understand that, but a lot of them don't. Guys who are like over 40, over 50, right? You can do day game and stuff like that with women that young, but there's a component you got to build on trust.
You do it subtly. So, for example,
indirectly.
There's one coffee place here near where I live in San Diego, and all the students from a Catholic university go there. It's loaded with beautiful, successful young women. I would never walk up directly to them, but I'd sit down on the table. They're common tables where a lot of people sit. I'd say, "Do you mind if I share that space?" I remember I did this with 2 girls, Abby and was it Michaela or Mackenzie? It doesn't matter. Let's say Mackenzie. No, it was Michaela. And I noticed Abby's little Catholic saint. I said, "Hey, what saint is that? Is that Saint?" She said, "Saint Francis." I said, "Oh, that's the saint of young women who are cramming for finals." And they both cracked up laughing. I started talking to them about what I do. And then I said, "Well, I also teach emotional intelligence to clueless men." And they said, "Oh my God, how do you do that?" I told them a little bit. I got them progressively intrigued. And I said, "Here, let me show you. Pretend I was a guy that you were dating." And I went into a scenario.
Oh, okay. So you're going straight to hell.
Well, I'm not going to hell because I'm liberating men.
Correct. So, hey, perfect segue. So another technique I've used of yours, I haven't used it lately because I don't really have a confidence problem, but back years ago when I needed more of that. And again, I'm going to butcher this. Matter of fact, I've taught this to a few of my friends, probably incorrectly, but it still worked. Like you said, the thing where it's a self-confidence thing where if you're nervous, so you visualize like a steel manhole cover that's an inch thick around your heart. All right. And you feel it. And then you put one over your balls or your crotch, because those are 2 vulnerable areas. And then you see the golden beam of light come out of the ground that's rooted all the way to the core of the earth.
Right.
And then you think of your funnest thing you've ever done in your life, and you assign that a color, and then you spiral that around the golden beam of light. Right. And then you click into the beam of light with your spine, and you just like rooted to the earth, and that energy's bursting in your spine with this protection. And then you step forward and you feel more confident.
Right. And it's
huge. I've done this and it's huge. I mean, I just buzzed through it really quick, but God damn, does that work?
I grabbed that from ritual magic with a K on the end. I have a mind that will look at things, and this is one of my other skill sets. I'll look at something from one field and I'll say, wait a minute, that can be morphed over and have a relationship to this field. So examining something from ritual magic, we can dive into that later and say, wait, I can use that technique. I've forgotten that technique. But one of the cool things that makes that technique work is you're radiating with energy, but you're also withholding.
Protected.
Both radiating and withholding. It's an energetic push-pull. It's not a push-pull, PUA pickup push-pull. It's an energetic push-pull.
An internal push-pull?
It's an energetic push-pull. I happen to believe, I can't prove it. I'm very hard-nosed and skeptical. I happen to suspect, believe, have an idea. I got this from my meditation teacher. He describes it best, that we humans have a foot in two realities: a local reality, a hard reality where time has a linear progression, a past, present, future. All communication takes place through data transfer. You knock over one domino, it knocks over the other. It's pure matter, cause and effect. But then we have a foot in a non-local world where everything is information, where we're all connected with each other anyway, where the future can actually cause the present and the past. Much different, whacked out. I can't prove it. It's very key. It's very, very similar to human wishful thinking, which is the real problem with it, as opposed to hard science, which is designed to eliminate the errors that come from wishful thinking. But what that technique you're describing, I believe, works non-locally. You're showing up energetically powerful and attractive, and yet at the same time, you're emotionally and sexually unavailable. So it's a push-pull energetically, not the PUA push-pull where you give them some attention and you ignore them.
Right. You're talking about the fact that you're getting the infusion of energy from the spine thing, but that's the way I've always thought about it. You're protected. So you're empowered. I hate that word, but
no,
you're empowered and protected at the same time.
Correct.
Which I've never seen before in any other technique. Usually it's one or the other. Usually it's a protection thing and that's all it is, or it's an empowering thing. This is both. People
get into trouble when they have either or. I like to teach my VIP clients, because they're the ones who are smart enough to get it. Either or usually is not the case. We live in a world of and. When you can take things that seemingly contradict and actually see how they're in cooperation with each other. I like to use this pattern on women. I call it my laughter pattern. I get a woman laughing and I'll say, isn't laughter a wonderful thing? It's paradoxical. It seems to be the opposite. It's both a glue and a lubricant. When you laugh with someone, it's a lubricant because it lets you take all that anxiety, all that resistance of meeting someone you're connecting with, and it just allows you to lubricate away, Debbie, from all of that and touch your special opening for comfort and connection. But it's a glue because when people laugh, we come over and over again into that place of connection and really feel something big's about to go down.
Did you guys see what he just did? I wonder what percentage of my audience who maybe don't know you as well don't realize what you just did. The guys with the dating backgrounds, the PUA backgrounds know exactly what you just did. I know what you did. But if you didn't realize what he did, rewind this podcast or video and listen to that again with a slightly different sexual context. And all of a sudden you'll be like, oh. And what's funny is, okay, that's one of my questions. If a woman realizes what you're doing, it still works, correct? Or is that not correct?
First of all, they don't realize what I'm doing.
Ever? Have you ever had oh, I know what you're doing.
3 or 4 times in a huge, long career, they've recognized, they'd said, you're trying to do something to me. And I'll say, well, I never try anything or thing. I get that a lot though, Debbie. I get that a lot because I think it's that my words just seem to resonate in those places where you find your deepest hopes.
Here we go again.
Passions, all those desires you maybe gave up on ever finding. Anyway, when you were a little kid, did you have a favorite candy that was the king of your candy castle? I changed the subject and leave it to sink down into their subject.
That's good. Yeah.
Works.
Did you, if you remember the old school PUA technique back when I was in that world was the cube. I don't think that came from you.
I didn't.
That didn't. Okay. Did you do the strawberry fields thing or no?
No, that was one of my students, I believe. You have to understand, Caleb, over the 30+ year career I've had a lot of interesting characters come in and out that swinging door.
Well aware.
And
yes.
that was one of my students. I don't remember. I was in mine. I don't take credit for things that I didn't do.
Can you give me another example of why things are an and, either in persuasion for either women or business or any other aspects? Because that goes back to me, and I don't know what your perception of this.
Sure, yeah.
That goes back to.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
that goes back to having a prosperity mindset. That's how I view that.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. So when I teach my high net worth clients about sales, I don't touch the techniques. I only teach to the people who are struggling, but to the people who are really able to get it, who think contrarian, and they're open to a radically different way of getting things, because very ways of thinking, feeling, and acting that stand so radically outside of what you're used to doing, that hold the potential for giving you results that are so far beyond what you're used to getting. I sent you that video. You saw that video of the guy who went from $1,500 to $11,000 paid commission check in like eight sessions of working with me. But in any case, here's the paradox. In my form of selling is about two things. Yes, it's about getting your ideas into the prospect's mind through unconscious communication, but it's also about expanding their mind to include your ideas. It's about both. Now that seems contradictory. That seems paradoxical. You're either doing one or the other, but in fact, you're getting your ideas into their mind through the power of suggestion, but you're also expanding their mind to include your ideas, and to include ideas that they didn't even consider. Because here's the thing, one of the big, and we'll get back to seduction in a minute, but one of the biggest impediments to you making high ticket sales or any kind of sales where there's a high number on it is even the most successful people, I'm telling you, have imposter syndrome on a deep unconscious level. They have a lot.
I agree. I agree with that.
And when you can shift people's beliefs, expand their mind by getting rid of those beliefs subtly that they don't deserve it or can't have it, when you can shift their sense of possibility, capability, and deservingness, then you're doing something that's heroic. You really are expanding their mind to include a new possibility. To teach through a metaphor, let's say your client is in a beautiful, beautiful vacation villa, no matter, like Turks and Caicos, wherever it is. And instead of looking out at that beautiful bay window at all the beauty, they've got their eye in that little peephole in the hotel or the suite door, looking out into that narrow corridor to see if someone's coming after them. And so our metaphorical job is to turn them around and show them the possibility. And in that sense, we're expanding their consciousness. In the other sense, we're sneaking our ideas into their mind. It seems like a paradox in either or, but it's both. Just like, think about it this way. Your thumb and your forefinger, your thumb and any of your fingers work in opposition to each other. It's called an opposable thumb, correct?
Right.
But they also work in cooperation with each other. It's opposition and cooperation. Because we have opposition and cooperation, that enables us to move our world manually. It's the same thing intellectually and cognitively and emotionally, and dare I say, spiritually. I hate that word, but because it's sloppily defined.
I understand your context, and I actually agree with it. The spirituality acts, yes. So I get it.
So,
well, go ahead.
No, that's what I meant.
You mentioned imposter syndrome. That's very common. Even I don't have a lot of that, but I have moments where I have a little bit of that. What is even more common with a lot of people in my audience is, see if you can help them with this. This is a really common complaint or observation I get from guys in my audience. I can't start a business, or I can't make sales, or I can't do X, Y, Z because I don't know anything. I never went to college, or I went to college and I got a history degree. I don't know anything. I have no marketable skills, which I know is bullshit. It's always untrue. No one would ever hire me as a coach or a consultant. No one would ever, if I try to do sales, no one would listen to me. It's a self-esteem thing plus something else. I think it's a number of things. Explain.
Self-esteem is not a thing like oil in your car and your 4 quarts low. It's a process called self-esteeming. It's a series of interlocking skills. For example, the willingness and even an attraction to stepping into the unknown, a great strategy for learning from everything you do and continuing to be motivated, the ability to create a vision for yourself that's not dependent on the events of the day, knowing what your values are that match your vision. It's a series of interlocking skills. We have to watch how we use language. Language can either free our world or it can freeze it. So when we say, I lack self-esteem, I say, really? I have a jug of self-esteem fluid in my condo in Hawaii. Come over there, fly out. I'll charge you $1,500 ounce, and we'll pour it in the top of your head through a hole. I'll have a surgeon screw in there and you'll be fixed. And they laugh and they get it. It's not a thing. So what I begin to do when I work with people like that is there's all sorts of games I'll play. I'll say, here's what you do. What city do you live in? And they'll say Chicago. It doesn't matter. Let's say Chicago for the purposes of this. Or I'll say, okay, here's what I want you to do. You get a journal. Go to a place where there's a lot of foot traffic at lunchtime. Pick out someone who looks super successful. They're wearing the great suit. They walk like they got the world by the balls. They probably have a hot girlfriend, drive a fancy car. And I want you to describe that person. And then imagine you're taking all your shitty limiting programming, your limiting beliefs, all the stuff you're telling yourself that you can't do, and write me an essay about what their life is going to look like financially, emotionally, blah, blah, 90 days after running your shit through their head. And so by doing that, they start laughing. After doing, I make them do the assignment. And then after like 3 or 4 repetitions, they go, oh, I get it. Everyone would be fucked up if they thought the way I thought. It's a technique Milton Erickson called externalizing. You get the client to externalize the problem by applying it to other people. And they're going, oh, wait a minute, it's not who I am. And then you can read language. See, it's very difficult to change. Now we're talking about my skill as a change worker. We're putting seducer aside for a minute. It's very difficult to change someone's sense of identity. So if someone says, I can't do this because X, I can't run a business because I have no background or I have no previous experience, I'll say, wow, what's more true? I can't run a business because I have no prior background, or up until now, it was my experience that I had yet to claim my skills to enjoy my successful business. So all of a sudden, when we say up until now, we're binding the problem in time. It has been my experience, not who I am, that I did not have my skills. So now we're making it about skills, not who they are. Do you get it?
Yes, so far.
We're making it about their skills. Up until now, it was the case that I didn't have a successful, up until now, it was my experience that I didn't have a business of any kind. And now I claim my joyful learning of my powerful skills to create my business. Do you get it?
You're separating me from my skills.
Yes.
Or me from my thought process. You're separating me from these things.
There's one thing to say I'm lousy at math, and to say, it's my experience up until this moment that my math skills can be wonderfully improved. So much easier to change beliefs on that logical level of skills. So I would never try to say, yes, you can. Look at all these examples of people who did it. Maybe some people that will take, maybe some people they won't. Or I also like to use, I'm giving away all my techniques. The more people hear the
I'm not
value
stopping you.
The more people hear the value that I offer, the more the smarter ones will think to yourself, damn it, if he's giving this away for free, what is the stuff I actually have to pay for? So good, I'm glad that you joyfully find yourself thinking about it like that.
Yeah.
So anyway.
So how long, I've heard that distinction. The first distinction you said about take all your negative thought and your programming and all your bullshit and put it into the successful guy and then describe his life in 90 days.
Yeah.
How that separates all of your negative programming from yourself. because I talk a lot about societal programming, I talk a lot about that.
Right.
How long to get that distinction, even for the person who's bad at math, but it really doesn't matter, to get that distinction from it's not me, it's a thought process in my head, or it's a skill set in my head, or it's something I was taught. How long does it take for someone to fully internalize that? Because you said you make them do that exercise more than once.
They have to sit there and do it at least, they have to do it at least 3 times with 3 or 4 different people. They can make it one outing as long as
I see. Okay. 3 or 4 different people. Okay. So how long does it take realistically for someone to make that distinction? Oh, it's not me.
It's something. Get it unless they're very seriously traumatized. They get it right away. Now, that's just the start of the work. Now that you've got them, they're open to the possibility that they can change. Now you have to build on it. All I'm doing there is eliminating, and then we take apart the various behaviors that have the sub-programs have been getting in their way. For example, I think a lot of people who think they have a confidence problem or a discipline problem don't. I think what they have is a shitty learning strategy. They focus on their mistakes, and by focusing on their mistakes, they program them back in. And since the mind only works on what you tell it to do over and over and over, of course, when you get back into that situation in the real world, you'll just do what your brain has rehearsed, which is all the stuff you've been dwelling on. Now, you're not dwelling on it because you have low self-esteem or you're a thing called a self-sabotager. The intent of dwelling on it is to try to learn from it.
I see all the time guys in my audience and guys in other audiences who will say, literally verbatim, they'll say, I'm an incel, or I'm a virgin, or I'm a divorced man, or I'm a loser. They're doing the opposite of what you're saying. It's all about who I am and not something, not a process that you can change.
Learned something from a horrible experience I had with a cultish-like group. I figured I had nothing better to do. Let's see how I can brain fuck these people who are in this cult. Well, it turned out they brain fucked me a little bit. I fought back and fucked them up really bad. I went on their Facebook group and I exposed every hypnotic technique they were using, every cult technique they were using, and it stayed up for 2 days because no one was reading it. And then they deleted it and told me don't come back. But one of the things they did say, I did extract one bit of learning, which they probably stole from everybody else, which is anything after I am is sacred. Anything after the words I am is sacred and treated as such.
Perfect. This is what a perfect segue. This is something I want to ask you about. Affirmations. I teach affirmations to a certain subset of my audience, but there's a certain syntax because I've seen data that it works as long as you follow a certain syntax, because people in the Olympics use it. And one of the techniques that, and I want to get your opinion on this. One of the techniques is you must start an affirmation with the words I am. It must start with those 2 words. It cannot start with anything else. So what do you think about affirmations in general and then that?
I disagree.
Okay.
First of all, if it works for you, it works for you. That's my saying.
Mm-hmm.
I try to look at things empirically, and I'm pretty free of doctrine. I don't want to turn this into theology, theology is by nature not subject to change. I found in the beginning, and often I tell my students, the problem with telling yourself, I am, is your unconscious has 10,000 repetitions of I'm a loser, blah, blah, blah. Now, here's a rule. In any conflict between the conscious and the unconscious mind is going to win.
Correct.
So can those affirmations work? Yes. The trouble is, I like to teach a metaphor. When I was a kid, for Hanukkah, back in 1966, I was 8 years old. My sister bought my little brother Stevie a toy robot. Now, back then in 1966, toy robots were not powered by AI, and there was no AI. And you had a wire controller. You had the little joystick and a wire that ran up the robot.
There are those, yeah.
And I like to break his toys. So this is in the Psychological Diagnostic Service Manual 5, as schmuck, being a little schmuck, a little fucker who likes to cause trouble. I pressed forwards and backwards at the same time. Now the robot began to shake, moved forward then backwards, and the little blue wiring up his ass started to catch fire, and blue smoke came out. It fell over. The robot had an internal conflict because one set of programming was saying this and the other programming was saying this. And so I find it much easier to use the word you in the beginning. You are aggressive, direct, and powerful with the women you desire because there's no conflict. You're using
even if your subconscious mind knows that's coming from you, because another technique I've read about is have someone else record it in someone else's voice, and then it is easier hit to your subconscious because it's not your voice. Or is that, what do you think about that?
I just found
I've read that too.
If you're repeating it to yourself until it becomes real in your behavior, use the word you. But that's what I found. I don't know that affirmations is the most powerful way to get to where you want to go. What replaces affirmations? Or is there something? Because Tony Robbins talks about incantations and running on the beach and getting real emotional and feeling the water and then saying, I'm passionate about life, and not just saying I'm a winner, I'm a winner, I'm a winner. Is that, or is there, in your world, is there a replacement for affirmations? Or is it more complicated than that? Does it take more time and effort? I think it has to do with visualization, but in a different way, and creating altered states and rituals, and also meditating. It's a whole subset of things we can talk about.
Yeah, I do all those things. Okay. Yeah, I've done visualization, not lately, but I've done it. I did it for years in my 20s. I meditate about 4 times a week. And so, yes. Okay. All right. So it is a little more complicated than just saying I make, the syntax is, I am joyfully, it's always, I am, and then an adjective that's a positive one, and then a result. I am joyfully making $500,000 a year through my blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I think that changes your opinion though, right? In terms of the syntax doesn't help. It's more competent. It's more about, all right. So it's a holistic, again, I don't like that word, system of visualization and meditation and action, because you said ritual, because I'm big on those.
Yeah,
so it's a combination of several things.
I have weird affirmations.
For example,
one of my daily ones is confusion, uncertainty, and the unknown are my joyful gateways to my clarity, my focus, my vision, my purpose, my joyful creation of my amazing and fantastic life in each and every way. I welcome the things that normally I would be adverse to. So I talk about welcoming confusion, welcoming uncertainty, welcoming the unknown as being joyful gateways to my vision, my purpose, my passion.
But your point is that wouldn't work without the other things you're doing. Is that your point?
My point is,
or wouldn't work as well.
I just am saying I have weird things I affirm that other people don't think about. The idea of welcoming confusion, of being excited by confusion, is something I think people are. Yes, fear is one of the big things that keeps people from moving, but confusion is a more subtle one. People dislike being confused.
I have read that all negative emotion comes from fear, that it starts. So if you're mad, you're actually scared.
That's not true.
Not true. Okay. What do you think?
I think it's much more, that's an incredible reductive and oversimplified way of looking at human emotion. Obviously, anger is there. Anger is hardwired evolutionary survival response.
Yes.
If you're being attacked, you have to muster your resources to have fury, berserk even. So I don't care what people say. You only come from fear or love. Bullshit. It's bullshit.
Is there something?
I think uncertainty and confusion is just as big a block for people or an obstacle as fear. You don't think there's a kind of the same thing? If you're uncertain, aren't you afraid? Well, not all fear has to do with uncertainty. You could be being afraid of failure means you're visualizing failure and you think it's going to happen, but it's confusion. Let me back up. Being confused, the human ego, the human sense of self wants clarity in the mind and comfort in the body. And confusion, humans hate it. They hate it.
The few times that I don't take action when I should is because I don't know what to work on next. I'm big on planning. And when I neglect to plan, even planning my day, if I have to sit and think about, okay, what do I work on now? Because I didn't plan, then I'm more likely to procrastinate or work on something stupid or work on something I know won't be very effective because I'm confused.
Decision fatigue. They've looked at this. This is science.
Yes.
Not that
yes.
It's not that you're a lazy person. It's decision fatigue. There's only so much mental energy you have to making decisions. This is one of my challenges, which is I prefer to have a free-flowing, free-form day where I can create as I said.
Okay.
But it really is a limitation, and I'm working on it. This is one that I'm working on.
So you agree with the like Mark Zuckerberg, Steve Jobs thing of wearing the same clothes every day, so you don't have to decide what to wear?
No. It's just from a book I read called One Thing, or I don't remember.
I have figured out, at least for me, the least amount of decisions I have to make in a given day, the more effective that day will be. So if I know in advance exactly what I'm going to eat, when I'm going to take breaks, what I'm going to work on, what my schedule is this hour, not literally by the half hour, but the more structured it is for me, the more effective I will be because I don't have to make those decisions. That's what I found for me anyway.
Cool, but we need to get back to how brilliant I am and what a unique genius I am. So let's
of course.
By the way, my boss who runs my life is right there.
Yeah, you mentioned him. Yeah, he's not on your lap though.
This is my.
Those of you who are listening to this podcast, he's petting his cat. Don't you have more than one? Don't you have more than one cat?
I have two. This is Necka Jane. Necka Jane is my 3-year-old, and her old sister is sleeping on my bed. I love cats. I'm a catophile. I love kitty cats.
I had a cat for 14 years until I had children, and he didn't like that and then ran away. And since then, I moved so much and travel so much, I'm catless. But I would own a cat and a dog, but I prefer cats over dogs. Yeah. I wish I could have pets. I'm just not compatible with my lifestyle.
Good man.
I wish. When you are selling, well, let me back up. One of the things I like is that seduction skills and sales skills, or even seduction skills and persuasion skills, are so similar because guys have asked me for years, what are the PUA or seduction or dating techniques that parallel over into business? And I say, you know what? Pretty much all of them. Almost all of them, maybe not 100%, but almost all, because it's a lot of the procedures that I've taught anyway, like for how to do first dates and things like that, things that work for me, are the same exact procedures with slight tweaks for how to talk to a prospect or how to negotiate a deal. There's a lot of similarities that I have found. What do you think?
I think they're all subsets of influence. They're all subsets of influence. It's all about creating. Well, see, I view it very, very differently. My view of selling is also batshit crazy, off the wall psycho. So if you can't step into batshit crazy, off the wall psycho for a little bit,
I can. Let's do it.
Yeah,
please.
Absolutely.
Please.
So I view selling and seduction and influence, all of it is about creating states, evoking states of consciousness. I don't think, how can I get that guy to sign the contract? Or how can I get that girl to give me a blowjob? I'm thinking, what states of consciousness, what emotional states do I need to create in them, such that giving me that behavior is something they've already convinced themselves they want to do. They've already visualized doing it. So it takes very little. Instead of aiming at behavior, aim at emotional states. So let me give you a metaphor. For those of you who are listening and not watching, I'm holding up both my hands. I have a sheet of cardboard in one hand and a sheet of gold foil in the other. And I want to conduct a current of electricity. This is not a trick question, Caleb. It's just a direct, straight question. which one's going to conduct the electricity, the gold foil or the cardboard?
Gold.
Exactly. So think of your victim, no, your subject's prospect state of mind as being a conductive medium. How do you create, instead of the cardboard states of being distracted or overwhelmed or cynical or not trusting you or not trusting themselves, how do you create states of focus, of suggestibility, of wanting to believe you, of trusting you, of trusting that they can make a good decision? Because nowadays, one of the big blocks to making any kind of sale that involves substantial amounts of money, and if you're not looking to make substantial amounts of money, why are you listening to this interview? You have to get people or create the idea in people's minds that they can trust themselves to make a good decision. This old thing, know, like, and trust, that's true, but it's no longer enough. You have to get people to believe unconsciously they can trust themselves. Otherwise, you're going to get a lot of flaking, a lot of stalls, a lot of smoke screen. So one of my claims is I can teach you through virtually any medium how to create that trust, not just in you, which is important, but in the prospect trusting themselves. Because this is a big challenge that people don't see. Nowadays, and we're about to have another, I'm sure you agree, we're about to have another huge financial crisis in the United States.
Are you kidding? Oh my God, yes.
The banks are going to crash. The real estate market's going to crash. It's going to make 2008 look like a picnic on the beach.
Yes, correct.
And then what they're going to do, I'm going to slip into politics just for a second. When there may be 3 banks left standing, Bank of America, Chase, and Wells Fargo, essentially banking will be nationalized. They're going to introduce a digital currency. We'll have a total surveillance country like China. That's what I see. I don't know if you see that or not.
Yes, I do. I don't know when it's going to happen. I see variations of that. Yes. In general, yes. We could talk about the details, but yes, CBDC is all those things. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's inevitable, frankly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
So 2008, a lot of people took a bath, got their financial,
myself included. Yeah.
Me too. So that psychic trauma is there in the people of that generation, but the people in this generation are going to get a tremendously rude awakening. And then after that, your ability to get people to trust institutions and to trust their own decisions is going to be seriously damaged. It's already there, but if you don't learn how to get people to trust themselves after what's about to hit the fan, forget about it as being a salesperson, because you're going to be fucked.
What about if someone doesn't have confidence and can it work the other way? So here's what I've seen. By the way, I agree with everything you said. During COVID, I don't know what your political opinions on that were, but during the pandemic, the experts, quote unquote, were wrong. Not only were they were wrong across the board about everything.
Of course.
Everything. All the trusted experts, the CDC, the government, the corporations, the scientists, the researchers, the doctors.
It was essentially, I'll just say something. I want to hear your question, but in my view, it was about centralization of power and control and getting people used to edicts from people who are not elected. That's what.
Yes, I partially agree. I more or less agree. Yeah.
And it was also about people needing to justify their jobs when they didn't know really what the fuck was going on.
Yes, also agree. So you would expect, and I would expect, that people now would have less confidence in quote unquote experts. And to a degree, that's true. But what I have seen over the last several years, including post-pandemic, is that people still cling to people who claim to be experts, or politicians who will save us, or this expert knows everything about geopolitics, so I'm going to do everything he says, or Jordan Peterson. I want to throw names around, but and this person is an expert, and if you say anything negative about this expert, you're wrong. Caleb, you understand, he's the expert. He's an expert on this. He's got a staff. He's got a research. And I've seen a lot of this, and it still seems like people are still clinging for these messiahs, even though they've been failed over and over again.
Caleb, it is hardwired into humans, hardwired into humans to want to submit to people who appear to be authority.
I know.
Authority is one of the drivers of the human behavior. Novelty, authority, rewards. Novelty and authority is a big one. We are hardwired to respond to authority. That's just it. Even if the authority is the appearance or the imitation of authority. Now, here's how I screen for authority. I ask, when I take on a teacher, I will ask the most challenging question I can think. If they take offense or make it about me being wrong, I get out of it. So, for example, when I had my little dealing with this cult, I was asking some skeptical questions. And the first day at lunch, the trainer motioned me over. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm evaluating you." He said, "How dare you evaluate me? You haven't had 30 years of experience doing transformational teaching." And I laughed. I looked in the eye. I said, "As a matter of fact, I have 31 years experience." He said, "In this container," and blah, 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 blah. Got into it, but he made me wrong. Rather than their group thinking, wait, maybe there are some ways we can improve, they made it about me. They said, where else in your life does this unwillingness to hear things show up? Rather than saying, hey, that's a good question, let me think about it. So by contrast, when I took on my meditation teacher, who's the best teacher of my life by far.
Really?
Yes. When I took him on, it was a silent retreat, but the first day we have a group meeting, you're allowed to ask questions. I said, I have a question for you. Buddhism teaches that there is no self. There's no self as thing. But the yoga tradition teaches there's a purusha, a genuine pure self that's in there, past the ego. Both of these traditions are venerated and honorable. Which one is right? I said, do you understand the question? And he giggled like a little girl. He said, of course I understand the question. I wouldn't be qualified to teach if I didn't. Let's have a look at what the Yoga Sutra says. And he chanted it in Sanskrit. He gave me a beautiful answer. I don't even remember what it was, but I thought, and then he giggled again like a little girl. He said, does that answer your question? And I fucking thought, this guy is it. He's the shit. And I watched him through multiple trainings. He's totally clean around ego, around sex, around money. I got it. So one of the ways I will look at authority is I'll see how do they respond to people who challenge their perspective, their worldview. Will they consider that maybe they're not entirely correct? Do they make it personal, or do they duck or dodge the question, or do they take it on? In my teaching, where I've evolved to as a teacher is I used to be, don't talk to me about that shit. But now if someone asks a question, and I'll say, I don't know the answer to that. Let's look at it. Let's examine it together. And if I don't get it, I'll say, thank you. You just gave me an opportunity to be a better teacher.
Do you believe in God? Or do you want to go there?
I'll go there. Define your term. Right. Define your term.
Do you believe?
Are you talking about Thor? Are you talking about the Abrahamic God of Islam, Judaism?
Good question. Good question. None of those. No, not
Odin. The monkey god, Zeus.
Yeah, the monkey god, right. My wife thinks Thor is hot, but that's not God.
I love Thor.
So do I.
My nickname for my cock is Mjolnir. Girls, you can only lift it if you're worthy.
Oh, there you go. Oh, that's cute. My thing with Thor goes back to when I used to play Dungeons and Dragons when I was a kid back in the 80s. So that's long history. So let me be more specific, because that's a good question. Do you believe in an intelligence beyond our five senses to detect and beyond our level of scientific development to detect, that is universal or galactic or extra-worldly or extra-dimensionally?
By intelligence, do you mean one? Do you need a committee, multiple ones?
Either of those things.
Well, are you saying
it could be one, or it could be a few? It could be more than one.
First of all, human language is limited in what it can describe. I really believe there are aspects of reality that human language is not capable of describing or grasping. That's the first thing. So we're talking about a limit on linguistics. Oftentimes, we talk about things only through metaphor because that's the only way to describe it. Does that make sense?
So far, yes. Yep.
I suspect that we as humans participate in some kind of activity, some kind of ongoing creation that we are both shaped by and that we shape. Whether that, I don't believe in something that interferes. I don't believe in any kind of intelligence that interferes in human history. I don't believe in something that answers prayer, that's transactional. Okay. Oh, please let Johnny win the football game, or God is good. Look, he healed my sister of cancer. Okay. I don't believe in that. I don't believe in any intelligence or entity that directly puts its finger into the pie of human history. That's not to say that consciousness is not shaped or how can I put this?
Law of attraction.
No,
for example.
Don't even throw that crap at me. We'll get
no.
there.
Okay.
For example, this is going to sound so strange. Pippi Longstocking. People ask me about God. I bring up Pippi Longstocking. You know,
a lot of people don't even know who that is. Yes,
Pippi
I know who that is.
You remember Pippi Longstocking?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Pippi Longstocking was the Swedish character from the books written by Astrid Lindgren in the late 40s, and about a red-haired girl with pigtails who's 9 years old.
Yeah.
Horse above her head and had endless gold from her father, who was a pirate. And she was consistently disobeying adults, breaking the law rules, picking her nose, etc., etc. The exact opposite of how Swedish children were taught to act. Swedish children were regimented. They were served last at the table. You speak when you're spoken to. You obey all the rules. You don't talk about yourself. You don't brag.
Right.
I think Pippi Longstocking was sort of channeled by Astrid. It became a cult phenomenon. Children started behaving like Pippi, disobeying their parents. It was crazy. Transformed the whole landscape of how Swedish children behaved. I think Astrid Lindgren, somehow, Pippi, that character that came to Astrid, was a crying out of the collective unconscious of Swedish children, crying out for a hero. Like, give me someone who's the opposite of that. And so art changed life. And I think sometimes art is a communication from whatever that is, called it. In that sense, there's a reshaping. So I believe that whatever that participation, whatever that intelligence is, can reshape the landscape, but I don't believe it digs up the garden. You get the metaphor? I don't believe it'll go, oh yes, Johnny wants, or Caleb wants me to help him grow the apple patch. Let's make it rain over there because he's praying for rain. I don't believe it does that. But I do believe.
Yeah, what does it do in your view? If there is any influence, what does it do based on what you do? Or does it work that way?
I think it can shape overall.
So here's an example. If I do everything we just talked about, so meditate, visualize, affirmations, or at least a certain type.
And you can still get run over by a truck the next hour.
Correct. I could. That's right. But do these actions, if I do them correctly and often enough, do they influence anything outside of my 5 senses or science in your view, or no? Is it all because of my subconscious?
My answer is I believe in some cases, yes. And here my caveat. The challenge with it is that kind of reality is very flaky. It doesn't work like a vending machine. You put in your quarter of meditation, your quarter of affirmations, your quarter of
that's a good way of saying it. Yeah. Yeah. I know what you mean.
You are your success. It's very flaky. Yeah. And the other problem is it looks a lot like wishful thinking and hallucination. And it's very difficult to have the discernment to say, which is my wishful thinking and which is something that's actually happening. This is the beauty of science. Science is there because it recognizes that humans are prone to misread data, to project what they want to see, to engage in wishful thinking, to reach the wrong conclusions, to intuit things that are incorrect when things are actually counterintuitive. This is where science actually comes in. It's very good because science recognizes that, yeah, humans do a lot of wishful thinking, and so this area of whatever you want to call it, I believe it's real. I also believe on the other side of it, there's chaos and randomness. I like to say sometimes we write the story of our lives. Sometimes life writes the story of who we are. But I absolutely do not believe there's a God that cares where I put my penis, whether I eat a shrimp or not.
Of course not.
Whether I cut off a piece of my son's pee-pee. I don't believe in that at all. I deny that that's true. I actively, openly deny it.
Yeah, I figured that out when I was about 9. Yeah, that's just BS. That's we could do a thing on religion now. Myths from the Bronze Age. And no, you're right. But to me, it almost doesn't matter if there's an influence out there, the shared superconscious or whatever, because these techniques do work on your subconscious. You would agree with that. And that's my focus, is whether or not we can influence what's outside of us. Meditation, affirmations, visualization, all these things affect our subconscious, going all the way back to take all your garbage and put it into a successful person and watch what happens, to get that distinction going in your subconscious. That's your objective, right? Is to rewire the subconscious.
Shifting consciousness can create all sorts of fun shifts in reality. I don't deny it. I'm not denying it. I'm simply saying there's also chaos and randomness. People,
no matter what you do.
This is why I hate the law of attraction, because it denies the reality of evil and creates and feeds into narcissism and social irresponsibility. I've been to these conferences before, and people show up. Here's my 5 Rolls Royces and the 5 homes I live, and everyone writes down and affirms what, and no one says, I am affirming putting an end to world hunger. It's all about me. It's all
That's a good point.
It's all about super narcissism. It's incredibly narcissistic.
Well, that doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't work, right? That just means people are selfish.
Hold on.
Okay. All right.
Second, really, so your reality is solely the result of your own creation. I'm Jewish. I was raised on films of the Holocaust. Anyone who believes that should be strapped to a chair, have their eyelids propped open like Clockwork Orange, and forced to watch video of the murder camps that the Nazis used, the extermination camp. Look at the piled up bodies of corpses, naked corpses, piled 30 feet high, of rotting bodies of children and women and men. Women who were forced to watch their children be raped and then butchered alive. You fucking tell me that those victims, and they were victims, created that reality, and I'll slap your fucking teeth out of your mouth. Anyone who says that should be forced to watch those films. And I don't believe in violence or force unless it's self-defense. But it infuriates me how ignorant people can be. And I would just challenge anyone who believes in the law of attraction. You create your reality. Okay, so those victims created the Nazis and murdered them. Well, some of the Jews were smart enough to escape. Okay, so they saw the signs coming, or they had the capability to do it. Therefore, it justifies what the Nazis did, and the victims still created that reality. I think it's the biggest load of bullshit. It denies the existence of evil. And it makes people socially irresponsible. Why should I help that person? Why should I help feed people in Africa? And by the way, I'm not a hypocrite. I support care. I support Doctors Without Borders. I walk my talk in this case. Why bother contributing or helping those people? They created their reality.
I just thought of it.
I got mad. I have not been emotional in this interview, but you just saw me get emotional. You saw genuine anger.
I've seen you get emotional before. Yeah. Something you said reminded me of a counter argument I heard once to a guy teaching and somewhat law of attraction, more prosperity consciousness. And he said to people who say prosperity consciousness doesn't work, he said, do this, ask them this question. Do you think it's a good idea to constantly repeat to yourself in your mind and affirm every day for a half an hour a day, I'm going to get cancer very soon. I'm going to get a serious illness very soon. I'm going to get cancer very quickly. And if the answer is, well, no, that's a bad idea, then why is it not a good idea to do the opposite? Does that make sense? I'm not saying I agree with him. I just thought of that as you were talking.
I didn't say it's a bad idea, but to say that's not what the law of attraction is saying. It's saying that you create your entire reality based on what you think.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, can you create? Well, you can have an influence over your own actions. And that goes back to subconscious versus just stuff outside.
That's
okay. Then we agree. All right. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying. And that's why I'm saying it's almost irrelevant what happens, whatever this is outside of us and outside of our brains. We could talk about maybe we're tapping into something and maybe there's something is beyond. But the main point of all this, I
believe there is. There's a book that convinced me called Beyond the Brain. I spent a whole summer reading it by a Czech psychiatrist who, when LSD was still legal, experimented with giving his patients LSD and taking them on trips. And then, very interesting, his name is Stan Grof. And Stan, reading that book utterly convinced me, along with my own experiences.
Yeah, but I'm saying whether or not that's true, all these exercises you and I are talking about influence your behavior.
Yes.
Which then creates results, hopefully.
Correct.
Right.
Monday.
Okay. Yes. Therefore, we could have these discussions. We could talk for 3 hours about this and it'd be interesting, but it's almost irrelevant. What's that?
We're now kind of cognitively jerking off here.
Right. So yeah, it's an interesting topic, but it really doesn't, move the needle in terms of your life. In terms of convincing other people, I want to circle back to something you said. You have to get them to have confidence in themselves before or in addition to getting them to do what you want. Correct? And is that done phase 1, phase 2, or is that all done at the same time?
Yes.
Let's use a business scenario.
Yes. My answer is yes.
Okay. I knew you'd say something like that.
Yeah. So let's say I was doing a presentation of some kind, or I was answering an objection. I would say, before we explore this world of whatever it is, before we explore this opportunity together today, I just want to invite you to please share the questions that naturally arise when a great decision is being made. Now, I want you to unpack that. Before we explore together, we implies a relationship, explore. When there's an exploration, there must be a leader. And for every leader, there must be a
follower.
Exactly. Before we explore together implies a relationship. Before we explore this opportunity together today, so now we're implying a relationship with those words. I just want to invite you. Invite implies not
No, this is good.
Relationship to not, I didn't say ask the questions, share the questions, which implies relationship, that naturally arise when a great decision's being made. Now it's that last part. I didn't say you're going to make a great decision to buy today. I said a great decision's being made. It's so vague that the unconscious mind will go, oh, he's talking to me. I'm going to make a great decision. I'm not overtly saying who's making the great decision, what makes it a great decision, how, when, where, why. I'm being deliberately vague and deliberately confusing, which goes totally contrary against the sales advice that says always make the message clear. No.
Right. Right.
There's a time in selling where you don't make the message clear. You have to be vague and even a bit confusing. A great salesperson in my system, in my subtle sales system, what I teach my clients is, look, learning when to be vague and a little confusing and when to be specific and going back one and forth to the other is incredibly powerful. That is a level of thinking that's way beyond scripts. And I teach scripts, don't get me wrong. What I just gave you is a script. But understanding that principle that you need to be confusing and at times and vague at times. But anyway, a great decision is being made. Please share the questions that naturally arise when a great decision is being made. I'm doing, not only am I now suggesting that they're going to make a great decision, I'm linking that suggestion to a behavior of asking questions. So the unconscious mind says, every time I ask a question, it means that I'm going to be making a great decision. Not every time I ask a question, it means I don't trust myself or I don't trust that.
Ah, okay.
Post-hypnotic suggestion. It's like if I said, every time I bang on the table, you're going to shout, Joe Biden is the best president the world has ever seen. Right? Which is a truth. But you get it? This is going over a lot of people's heads. So I suggest you review or re-listen. But
can you really quick, could you state that one, the use of language is amazing in what that script. Can you say that one more time?
Sure.
When you say that one more time? Yeah.
So before we begin this exploration together today, see, traditionally is, so today I'm going to be showing you our X49-5 system. And I think you're going to really enjoy how it allows you to increase productivity across your entire database with less usage of man hours by a factor of 3. Okay. And please ask any questions you want to.
Right.
I'm happy to. Jerk. People are already. I'd say before we begin our exploration together today, I just want to invite you to please share the questions that naturally arise when a great decision is being made.
Perfect. I've never heard anything like that.
Now,
and I get every piece of that.
Objection. Let's say I'm a real estate broker and I want to be your broker for a big deal or whatever it is. And you hit me with, why should I hire you? Go ahead, hit me with that.
Why should I hire you? Who the hell are you?
Well, Caleb, I can't be the one to say why you might find yourself making that decision. You're the only one who can find your own reasons to do that because you recognize a great decision is being made. So thinking about it like that, let's explore just exactly what it is we can do together. Okay?
What if I then said, of course, my reasons are the reasons I do things? What if I doubled down on, yes, they're my reasons. Of course, they're my reasons. What if I was reactive like that?
I've never had that response, but I just am like, great. As you continue to develop those reasons, I'm not sure which or all the ways you'll see that it matches what it is we're going to be exploring together today. But as that's taking place, let's have a look.
Okay, that's good. Good. Okay. Very good.
Back to you, and I would tie that into that.
Okay.
Continue to be open-minded as we continue to explore, without saying what you're going to agree with. Because now I know you're the kind of person who strongly has a big ego, so I'm simply going to unconsciously link those behaviors. It's called utilization or incorporation. Milton Erickson, who influenced me so much and influenced Bandler and Grinder, created it.
Yeah.
This principle that if a client's going to display a behavior over and over and over, you leverage that behavior to get them where you want them to go. You don't resist it.
How do you tie that into the number one objection we all get? We want to sell something. I can't afford it. So if it's a B2C scenario, it's a person, I can't afford it. I don't have that money. Or if it's a business scenario, that's not in the budget.
It's interesting. I believe Warren Buffett said, once you see the vision, Caleb, you can always find the money.
I agree. I agree with that.
So
I agree totally. That's me. That's me, though. I'm not typical and you're not typical.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the typical human who says, I can't afford that.
How is that going to change if you don't step up and make an investment in yourself?
Yep.
You can continue. So smart people, successful people don't say, can I afford it? They ask, am I worth it? So the real question is, are you worth it?
Oh, that's good. Okay, that's good. Well, of course.
But the other one we get is, I need more time to think it over.
That's right. That's probably the second or third biggest one. Yeah. I need more time. I'll talk to you next week. I'll let you know. I got to think about this. I got to ask my wife.
Well, those are different. Those are similar ones.
That's true. That's true.
So
Often bunched together, but yeah, you're right.
But there's where I want to break rapport. It's crucial to destroy rapport at the right place. And I want to confuse people and I want to shock them. I want to create amnesia for the objection. And
so that's not a pattern interrupt. That's an amnesia creating technique.
It's a giant pattern interrupt.
All right.
So if you say to me, I need more time to think it over, what I'm really hearing is, I'm afraid I'm going to make a bad decision. That's what I'm hearing.
Correct.
So I'm going to say, hey, I understand, but can I ask you a question, Caleb? Have you ever taken a long time to think something over and it still turned out to be a horrible decision?
Yeah.
Maybe it's not about time, but about the clarity you need to recognize it's safe to move forward today. So thinking about it like that, what do we need to get out on the table for you to see this is something you want to do? And if there's a piece of paper, I'd tap the contract. So
you're trying to elicit more objections when you say that, or no?
Yeah.
What's the objective of that statement?
I'm destroying the time objection.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I'm linking it to pain. I'm linking the behavior they think is going to keep them safe into actually making them unsafe. So they'll move away from it and not even be able to think about it anymore.
Ah, okay.
And then I'm redefining the meaning, not the time, but the clarity. And once I get them to buy in that it's about clarity, the presupposition is it's a good decision. They just need to get clarity on how it's a good decision. So I'm still thinking about what you just asked me. Have you ever taken a long time to make a decision and it turned out to be a horrible decision? As you're talking, I'm still thinking about that. Like, fucking hell, yeah. Yes. Yeah. So this is contrary to what people teach you, which is stay in rapport, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
No, my mother taught me to think this way. She said, Paul, if the majority of people are thinking something, they're wrong and they're stupid, come up with the opposite. So that was an arrogance that was installed. I was taught to think contrarily by my mother. And in my whole family, we were taught, we installed a lot of arrogance that we were smarter than other people, which is a mistake to tell someone. But it's also a radically dangerous permission to give a kid. We were never punished for thinking anything. We were always encouraged to take any thought to as far as we wanted to take it.
There's an old quote by J. Paul Getty that says, he was interviewed, this is back in the early 1900s. He was the first multimillionaire, first billionaire, I forget. And the the journalist asked him, how does someone become rich like you from zero? And J. Paul Getty said, it's very simple. Look at what everyone does, look at the masses, and look at what they do, and do something completely different. And that's all he said.
I just like to look at things. Look, if I looked at the dating world the way it's taught, ask someone out, being nice, etc.
Oh, shit. Oh, my God. Yes.
Holy shit.
It's from the 1950s and it barely even worked then.
I don't think it ever worked. I think maybe it did. Look, if you're Brad Pitt and you're a super famous movie star, fabulously wealthy with incredible high status, doesn't matter. Right. I created my system, speed seduction, I always visualized it as a guy who's 125 pounds, soaking wet, goes into a bar and gets picked on by the bouncer who's 6'10", 400 pounds. What are you going to do to win really fast? Or at least cripple him quickly enough to be able to run away.
back in those days when I was learning those techniques, 2007, right after my divorce, and I got into that world, I was more overweight back then than I am now. So I would immediately be turned off by the dating gurus who were really good looking or who said they were really good looking. I said, well, you have nothing to teach me. Well, why am I listening to you? And I would gravitate toward the chubbier guys, the uglier guys, the guys who had some problems with their, I was like, okay, I want to talk to them.
I use it as a selling point. Like if I can do that's partially fraudulent. I mean, I think I've had women who told me over and over, wow, you're really handsome. What is that ugly card thing you play when you play Ross Jeffries? It gets sympathy here.
No, those were the guys, especially the guys who are overweight or the guys who are really short or the guys, yes, those are the who are like dating like porn stars. And I'm like, okay, I need to listen to those guys. I don't want to listen to the good looking guys. And frankly, most of the guys back then, maybe today too, I don't really follow the dating guru world anymore, but most of those guys were pretty good looking, not all of them. And so I immediately discounted them.
Do you mind if we pause for a second while I put a little blood sugar in me? I'm gonna get a piece of fruit.
Yeah. I'll pause.
Pause for a second.
How old were you when you first got into the dating stuff? Was that 90s or is that earlier than that? Because I wasn't aware of you.
It was the late 80s, 87. I wrote my first book, How to Get the Women You Desire to Bed, 87, 88.
And virtually no one was writing about seduction in 87. They were writing about how to go on a date, how to ask a girl out.
Eric Weber had a book called How to Pick Up Girls in the 70s.
Eric Weber. Okay, I don't recall that name. Okay.
Marketing guy, which I read but didn't get me anywhere. Back then it sold for the grand total of something like $10, which was a lot of money back then.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. No, I remember that in the 80s, because that's when I was in high school, I read a few books and they're all basically about one of two things. They were either very beta male, blue pill, take her out to dinner and kiss her ass, or it was go to California, get a Playboy business card, copy the logo, put it on a business card, and tell them that you're a recruiter for Playboy, or tell them you're a doctor. And it was all about dishonesty and lying. It was those two were the only things we had in the 80s and really early to mid 90s, more or less.
I came along at a good time.
Well, I told you this privately. I'll say this publicly. I consider my business an outgrowth of my not PUA, but dating business. And I don't think I would be here, at least be here in this way, had it not been for you, because I exist. This is my opinion. I exist. A lot of other people exist today in the house that you built, or at a minimum you helped build.
Because you were.
Yeah, right. Where's your percentage? See, I gotta shut up, right?
Someone once said to me, if someone's complimenting you, that means the check is not in the mail.
Right. That's correct. That's accurate. Right. Yeah, because
what are words? Puffs of air between someone's lips. If they came out the other end, they'd be farts. So
correct. That's correct. Yeah. So when you started doing seminars, public appearances, things like that on a regular basis, was that 90s?
Early 90s, yes, sir.
When was Magnolia? Was that late 90s or early 2000s?
99.
Say again?
99. I think
99.
99 or 2000.
Got it. Okay. And then when you had courses where you were doing presentations and they were recordings of courses you had done, was that 90s as well, or was that 2000s?
All the way from the 90s through the 2000s. I just did my final one 2 weeks ago. I'm done.
Really? You did your final one? Really?
Yeah.
I didn't even know you were doing them still.
I had retired for 2 years, but I missed doing it, and people were begging me, and I missed doing it.
Well, they're gonna keep begging you. That's not gonna stop.
Yeah, but I have one more in me. I had my doctor there. My naturopath came in and gave me an IV and a blood. We had
really? Yeah.
Or the day before we had an ozonated blood transfusion because I was feeling so sick.
Really?
Tired before the event, so I wanted to do the event. I do naturopathic. I believe in naturopathic medicine.
I agree. I take naturopathic stuff every day. I do thyroid stuff, and yeah. Are you I was going to ask you, damn it, I lost it. Are How long was the event? Was it like an hour? Was it like an all day, or what? How long was
2
it?
days and 1 evening, all taught by me, by myself.
2 days and what? All day and all night?
Two
All
full
day and all
days,
evening?
2 full days and 1 evening.
Oh, that's a lot. Well, that's a lot. That'd make me a little tired. Yeah, yeah, that's a lot.
That would make
Okay.
you tired. What do you think it fucking did to me?
I was gonna say, yeah, that's my point.
Look,
Yeah,
I don't
that's a
I
lot.
don't have the energy. I don't have the energy I did as a young man. I just don't. I'm for my age, I have a lot of energy, and I take care of myself. And I'm constantly exploring new things with my naturopaths. I would not be functioning in business or doing anything if it weren't for my naturopathic doctors.
Really?
Yeah. I had chronic fatigue so bad 5 years ago. I went to a spot of chronic fatigue where I could maybe get out of bed at 3. It wasn't depression, it was just fatigue. Worked for 90 minutes and that was it. And that was tanking my income and my business. And then my friend Gina, who I met, said, you need to go see Dr. Anna and Dr. Garrick at Biomed Health Center. They're in San Diego, so go see them. And I went to see them, and they helped me cure the chronic fatigue, mostly fix my digestive problems when I mess around and eat things I shouldn't. But they got me on low dose naltrexone, which helps with brain fog. And you know this stuff. I'm sure this is part of your jam too.
Oh yeah. Oh, I do all this stuff. I do. I'm on TRT. I'm on all that stuff.
Yeah.
I do all the sleep stuff. I do the Aura Ring. I have all the, yes, I am on naturopathic stock. I do all
I'm
kinds
looking into P141, peptide 141. I don't know if you've heard of that.
I've never done that one. I've never had that. I do a human growth hormone peptide right now, but I don't have that. What is that for? I've heard that name.
We can talk about it off the air.
Okay. All right. So when did you start? You've been doing copywriting for 25 years?
Oh,
in
God,
some form or fashion.
Longer, since 1988.
Really? God damn.
I wrote all the copy for my first book. I have the ad somewhere here in one of my safes.
No kidding. Oh, did you self-publish that book?
Yeah. And we put an ad. I wrote an ad that we put in Gallery Magazine. The amazing secrets of a skinny, ugly, 6-foot geek from Culver City, California, that could get you all the hot, sexy women you ever desired, no matter what your looks or age, or it's free.
Oh, shit. There you go. Okay. So you've been doing this forever.
Gary Halbert is one of my mentors. You know, I don't know if you know who Gary is. I don't know if people
Gary Halbert?
Yeah.
Oh, really? No, I know Gary. I knew Gary. He's gone now.
Yeah,
really? I didn't know this. I didn't know that.
Gary loved me. He thought I was a total fraud, but he loved my copy and he loved me.
Gary was a character. I mean, he was more of a character than you or I was.
Yeah.
We could do a whole movie on Gary. Jesus Christ. Yeah, I was sad when he went away. That he was fantastic.
I was at his memorial service briefly. I poked my head in. I was sitting Shiva for my mom. My mom had died right then at the same time.
Oh,
so
okay.
I couldn't really leave.
He used to walk out. Those of you who don't know, Gary Halbert was a very famous OG copywriting expert. I mean, before Dan Kennedy.
Yeah.
I mean, hardcore. But he would do hilarious shit. He would charge like $10,000 for an event in like the Bahamas or something. And everyone would fly out to see him. And he would walk out in shorts and a t-shirt with stubble. He hadn't shaved, fucked up hair, and a hat that said "Clients suck."
That's scary.
That's what he would do. Yeah. And no one gave a shit. And because he was that good.
I could not make a penny had it not for people think Richard Bandler, which is true. He was my mentor. But without having those copywriting skills from Gary, I use them today, to this very day. I wouldn't have. The community would not be here without Gary Halbert, because I would not have been here in business without Gary.
Well, that headline you just quoted, that works. That's perfect.
Perfect headline.
That's perfect. A perfect headline. Yeah. So then at what point did you morph your stuff into, well, maybe you really didn't morph it. At what point did you get more into the sales business persuasion? When did that start?
So Caleb, around 2005, 2006, I was sort of tinkering in my mental laboratory thinking, there's a correlation here. What is the correlation? I came up with my first stab at a course, which I didn't like. I pulled it. And then subsequently, I started getting emails from very happy students, clients, whatever, that would say, hey, thank you so much. I met the woman of my dreams. Sometimes they would attach photos of their kids. And they'd say, by the
Yeah.
way, I've tripled or quadrupled my sales using your seduction stuff. I thought, holy fuck, what? Why
Yeah.
am I not doing that? So, so I reached out to a few of them and picked their brains and started experimenting. And I got like some people to beta test it with. I went, this works. I started rolling out the business and rolling out some of my courses still.
About when was that? Just a few years ago or a while ago?
Just a couple of years ago.
Yeah. You've got a course on persuasion
Yes.
for business.
Yes.
And is this is for business applications or any applications?
Subtle words that sell is the subtle words that sell. That's the name of my book, but it's also the subtle sales mastery course. And it teaches you how to use the power of linguistics, of suggestion, of communicating with your prospect's subconscious mind to massively increase your success. How to get your prospects to convince themselves to buy. If your prospects aren't convincing themselves to buy, you're doing far too much work and you're making far too little money, far by way too much. And you saw a testimony. I sent you a video testimony.
Yes.
Pulled up, or we could share. I could share a screen and show you of the guy who went from $1,500 and after like applying this stuff for 8 weeks, his next commission check was over $11,000. So,
and there was another guy you were talking about where you went from, he went to 43,000 a month from.
No, he went from his first paycheck.
No, that was, he went to 43,000 a month from
3,500 to 31,000
a month.
Yes.
Yes. After working with you for a while, just a short while.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's what I say. My proposition is, first of all, with the course, I extend a 1-year money back guarantee. If you're not seeing
Cool.
it, just return it. And also people are intimidated to talk to me. I used to offer the opportunity to apply to work with me. The problem is most of y'all, even though you're very brave, courageous people, you're talking to the master of persuasion and hypnosis. You're not going to get on a fucking call with me. It's not happening. If you're one of like the very rare handful of people who want to do it, you'll just put that in the show notes, how they can do it. But my wager is they ain't going to do it because it's natural to be afraid of me.
I understand. I relate.
You know what? If we don't make a good fit and you can't afford my fees because I'm the most expensive trainer you'll ever be glad you hired.
So you guys have seen how effective he is. I mean, he's already given me some ideas I'm probably going to implement. You see how long he's been doing this. You see how he's applied this to both dating and business. And this course is pretty inexpensive. It's not expensive. So depending on where you're seeing this, there's a link below. And actually, we'll put a link for both the course and if you want to actually schedule a call to hire Paul for coaching, although you're a little spendy, but that's fine. Do you use the word spendy? I don't even know. So we'll put both links for that. But
Yeah,
and then for my audience, if they get the course, we're gonna throw in your book.
What I'll do is give you an instant download of my book, Subtle Words That Sell, How to Get Your Prospects to Convince Themselves to Buy. I had a guy who came to my last seduction course who sold cars. And he said he used 2 phrases from this book, and he went from selling 45 cars a month to 75 cars a month. I want you to think about the implications. Most people would be happy with a 10% increase. If I could say to you, come to you and say, look, I'll increase your sales by 15% in 90 days. A lot of people would jump on that, right? But if I came along and said, I'll increase your sales by 30 to 40% in 90 days, or I'll work with you for another 90 days to see what you're doing wrong, most people go, holy fucking shit. That's why I'm very selective, because I don't want to give money back or give extra time. So that's why people go through an interview process, because I got to see they're willing to work.
You have to.
And they have to have the psychology to do things that are counterintuitive. And they have to be successful already. I don't create sales processes. I don't work with people who are struggling. You have to be cream of the crop and be counterintuitive and be willing to say, you know what, fuck it. yes, what I'm doing is working great. I want to see what else is fucking out there.
Mhm.
And those people, unfortunately, are rare. They're just, they're,
You're at a place now where you can be picky. I mean, I am too. So,
yeah.
I mean, you should be. And again, you guys, Paul, now, Ross Jeffries, his real name is Paul. Paul's one of the reasons I'm here. So I've used his techniques and I've used them both in my dating stuff and some of my business stuff. So I know they work. He's one of the reasons I'm here. This is not just some guy I found on the internet and said, hey, you want to be on my, I mean, you know who Ross Jeffries is, most of you. So yeah, click the link, at least click the link and look at the page and check it out. It's one of those, some of the things I've done, you're kind of dumb to not do it. If you're in a scenario where persuasion is important, and most of you are either in sales or you're starting your location independent business. And in both those scenarios, or actually not even or, because your stuff, correct me if I'm wrong, would your course help me if I'm not doing phone sales, but I'm doing all sales over the internet, copywriting, email, web pages, things like that?
Of course, listen. If you're doing video, especially, there's ways.
Yeah, or video. Yes, thank you. Yep.
If you're doing video, like a video sales letter or any kind of thing where you're communicating.
Good point. Good point.
You have to be able to use the power of suggestion, but you can certainly drop it into copy. I do it all the time. Look, if you don't use these tools, you're leaving so much armament in the storage instead of bringing it out and using it on the battlefield. Can you win without it? Yeah. But can you really get beyond where you thought you could go without it? I don't think
and
so.
You guys know how I keep screaming about marketing and sales is the most important function of your business. Yes, you have to sell quality things, but you can sell something amazing, be shitty at marketing and sales, and you will go out of business. I'm a business consultant with 26 years of experience. That is the norm. And also, and many Fortune 500 companies are guilty of this, they have fantastic marketing and sales and they sell garbage and they stay in business. They shouldn't, but they do because they do the marketing and sales. Now, ideally, you want both. You want to sell something that actually solves a problem to a narrow niche, just like I talk about. But your number one function in terms of actually making money and sustaining that business is marketing and sales. And that's exactly what we're talking about here. That's why that's where you should. And this is old stuff. You've heard me say this 1,000 times, you guys. This is where you have to invest to get clients, to get customers, to convince people a narrow niche with a specific problem to actually invest with you so you can help them. That otherwise you could sell the best thing in the world. You're not going to get anywhere. And again, I'll say that is typical. I mean, you've probably seen this too, Paul, but it's typical for people to have, not typical, but it's common for people to sell some pretty good stuff or a good service and have intent, but they don't know how to persuade. They don't know what they're doing.
And I'll leave you with this. You're never selling your product or service. That's a chump's way of looking at it. You're always selling decisions and good feelings about decisions. You're engineering decisions, not sales. So the only way to effectively sell decisions and good feelings about decisions is to get the client to sell themselves on the decisions and good feelings about decisions. And
that's a distinction you made here, and that's new to me.
And that's a process that can only be done consistently through what I'm teaching. You could do it on accident for sure, but if you want to do it consistently, you're not going to do it any other way. So that's what I think about that. And the key to a happy life is to spoil your cat. There she is. She's taking her
big fat cat.
She's not fat. She's taking her late morning, early afternoon transitional nap. She has a rough life, sleeping 18 hours a day.
You make me jealous when I see people with like really fuzzy cats. I'm like, oh man, wish I could have a cat. I'm gone too often, so I can't make that
I'm
work.
not jealous, but I'm joyfully happy for you. This is the other thing. One of the things that makes me really happy and makes me much more successful is gratitude is important, but blessing the success of people who I see as more successful as myself or on a path further down the path. I deliberately make it a practice to bless people who are doing really, really well. So bless the happiness and prosperity of so-and-so. May they continue to flourish and prosper and grow. And I claim my prosperity and my learning from, so I think envy is a big problem. Envy is
it's worse than I've ever seen it.
Envy is as bad as fear. When you give up envy and you bless those who have what you don't perceive you have, it opens the doorway to grace. It opens the doorway to something, and that is a callback to what we were discussing that is not describable in human words.
Mm-hmm. It's the worst I've ever seen it. It's an epidemic. I think things like Instagram exacerbate this, and also cultural changes.
ADD, we're revolving around the dark star of ADD, envy, and narcissism. It's destroying us.
I would agree. ADD, narcissism, and envy.
If we could remove all of those, if we could remove all of those, just take them away, what would fill the vacuum? If you remove those from your life, what would fill the vacuum?
This has been great. We should do this again. We could probably talk for another 2.5 hours.
Anytime. Kitty it's almost time to wake up Kitty to give her noontime treats. Okay. So I don't want her to destroy me.
Yeah, that's perfect timing. Thank you very much for this, guys. Check out the link, and I'm not kidding. This is one of the OGs of persuasion before many of you were born. I mean, that's how long he's been doing this. I keep calling myself an old man, but he's been at this. You published a book when I was a junior in high school. 1987? 88? Yeah. 88. Junior. I was junior in high school. Yeah. And you're one of the people who I saw made these processes work. And you're one of the reasons I'm here. So thank you very much for doing this. This is fantastic.
When I come to Dubai, if you're there, I'll visit. I'm Jewish. Will they allow me in?
They will allow you in, yes.
You're
thinking of Saudi Arabia.
Okay. All right. That's next door because I'm stamped Israel. I visited Israel twice.
No, anyone can come to Dubai. Saudi Arabia may have a problem. Dubai, no problem.
I wouldn't go to those fucking Jew-hating bastards.
Iran
nukes them, and then Iran gets nuked. Fuck them.
As long as the missiles go over Dubai and they miss me and they go into Saudi Arabia, then okay, fine. Don't hit Dubai. But Dubai loves everybody. Yes, you're welcome here. Yeah, well, we got to hang out. Cool.
All right. Shalom.
All right. Thank you, sir. You bet.
He throws.